Welcome back to Money Media. Today I want to cover something that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and that is the wage increase that we've recently seen in Australia as of the 1st of July 2025. Stick around. We have in Australia, we've received a minimum wage increase of 3.5%. I think this is a really good thing for the economy. It's something that we probably need, and it affects quite a lot of people. And if you're watching this at home and you are on the minimum wage, which is quite possible because there's actually 10% of Australia's population currently that are sitting on the minimum wage. And so an increase of 3.5% is good. But what that would see is of a 38-hour week, your wage would have increased by around $40 per week. And so that's good. And if that is you, congratulations. I hope there is more to come and more on the way. But what I wanted to talk about was the effect that this is going to have on the economy. Because there are, depending at which stage the economy is at, there are actually a few different effects that it may have. And I want to share with you the effect that I think it will have, but share an alternative of which it may have if the economy was in a different shape. What we learnt during COVID, when all that money was given out, is that people who are on the lower end of the spectrum or the minimum wage in Australia tend not to go out and take that additional increase and spend it on consumption. And when I mean consumption, I mean buying more t-shirt, more clothing, buying more alcohol, buying more day-to-day items that add value to your life, etc. What we have found since COVID, during COVID, was that a lot of that money that was given out during COVID was actually used by those on lower wages, was actually used quite intelligently. So it was used to pay down debt, or it was used to increase their savings rate, etc. And doing both of those things tends not to fuel inflation. Now, inflation at the moment in Australia at an annualized rate is sitting at about 2.5%. I believe it's 2.4% as of today. And so inflation is not a concern. But even if inflation was a concern right now, this wage increase would not be a concern for inflation. And that's because of where our economy is currently at. We're not in a high growth phase economy. We're in a fairly stagnant economy. So what that means is the $40 that you've just received in your pay packet as an increase is likely not going to the consumption of new goods. It's going to, as I've said, it's probably going to pay off that car loan that you've taken up, your extra payments for that car loan, or it's going to savings and things of that nature. If we were in a growth phase, it may be somewhat of a concern for inflation, and I'll tell you why. If we were in a growth phase, and that means basically that Australians pretty comfortable with where our economy is sitting. We're comfortable that we're not going to go into a recession. We're comfortable that our jobs are going to be quite stable. And so because we are confident in that, then that extra $40 we get each week may go to clothing, may go to discretionary spending that adds value to our lives. And so if that $40 were to go on spending for goods, then what we would find is there's an increase in the demand for goods, right? So businesses are selling more goods. And so because of that, businesses are actually going to need to employ more people to service and manufacture those goods. And that's a self-fulfilling cycle. And so businesses hire more people, i.e. more people get jobs. And more people get jobs means more people spending in the economy, and it continues to tick up, and that's how it influences or increases inflation. Now, the current period of the economic cycle we're in now, which is a fairly stagnant one, means because minimum wage recipients are more inclined to save that money or pay down debt, it means that the money isn't going to buying more goods. So businesses are having to pay more because the wages have gone up, but they're not selling any more goods than they were the day before. And so what that means is businesses won't be hiring as many people. And so unemployment will start to rise. Now, in the last couple of years, unemployment has actually been at record lows. So unemployment rising is not too much of a bad thing. What I believe is the government's trying to do is slow down the economy. And so by doing so, by increasing the minimum wage, it means we're increasing also unemployment with that. And so with unemployment rising, again, it's self-fulfilling. So unemployment rising means less people are able to spend money on goods and services. And so businesses will be able to employ less and less people. And with that, the unemployment rate will probably continue to rise slowly. What that does, ironically, is takes pressure off the minimum wage increase. Because if more and more people are looking for work, then those people become competitive with one another, and they're willing to work for less and less money. Obviously, the minimum wage being the lowest point that they can work for, you start to get many people who are happy to work for that minimum wage. Where when it's the opposite, when unemployment is very low, which we've just come off recently, when unemployment is really low, it means businesses are starting to compete for workers. And so when businesses are starting to compete for workers, they start paying more money or offering more money, so they become more attractive than the business next door. What this minimum wage increase is actually taking pressure off businesses to compete for on a wages basis. So the long run effect of this minimum wage increase is that, yes, it will put a little bit of money, $40 or so, in the lowest income earner's back pocket, but it will also, what it will help to do is slow down the economy, keep inflation very well contained, and we may even see on the back of this the interest rate continue to decline throughout the year, because there's less and less pressure on, because there's less and less fuel to grow the Australian economy. And so we'll probably see throughout the back half of this year in Australia probably a stagnating economy. And what I predict into 2026 is an economy that will probably continue to decrease, if I'm being honest, and that's where I see it going. So that covers the minimum wage increase and its effects that it will have on the Australian economy. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again shortly.